I was scrolling through videos about feminism on YouTube, and I ran across this video of this incredible Nigerian author, Chimamanda Adichie. Everything she said is exactly how I feel.
Beyonce has confirmed what we probably already knew. She is a modern-day feminist.
Whatever else is happening in this visual album, she's like, this is all me. You're gonna have to love it or hate it. Is that a form of feminism?
Absolutely. I think it's about authorship, right? She's clearly the person who's in control of constructing and owning her image, which is not something that you see very often when it comes to female pop singers.
I think Beyonce is a great feminist, and I'm no longer entertaining the question, is Beyonce a feminist? You can also look at her words and deeds and realize that she is a feminist, and she also happens to be sexy and she no longer wears pants. Congratulations. If I had a body like that, I wouldn't wear pants either.
And I do believe that Beyonce has evolved now. She has her song Flawless, in which there's a feminist author who says and proclaims what a feminist is, and in doing so and putting that out there, Beyonce is claiming that identity, and she's doing it publicly.
Beyonce can definitely call herself a feminist. That's not the question. For me, the question is, what does feminism actually mean to us? What kind of feminism do we value?
I woke up like this. I woke up like this. We flawless. Ladies, tell them I woke up like this. I woke up like this. We flawless. Ladies,
how do I define feminism? Women having control over their bodies, as well as women having equal pay rights as men.
Just knowing about the, I guess, rights politically, economically, socially of women, and and wanting to change it, considering if you see the unfairness within it.
I think it's very close to something that Bell Hooks has said when she articulates what she thinks feminism is, which is this idea that you should be opposed to all forms of oppression.
In the same way that Chimamanda Adichie does.
Feminist, a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes.
I know a lot of time older feminists feel like there's just this set in stone way to be a feminist. A feminist, I don't know, wears what she wants to wear, but it's not too revealing. Marches and rallies for women's equal rights, and she writes books and all these other things. But I think there's just so many ways to be a feminist.
I mean, I think when we look at women as a whole, we have quite a few women who have stepped up to challenge very traditional notions of feminism.
I don't think a lot of the people who are writing about feminism before it was ever called feminism would appreciate how it can be policed and how people do sort of gatekeep the term. So for Beyonce, her feminism is writing a song and girls feel like they're empowered after listening to this song. It's different than like writing a book or going out there and pushing for equal pay, but it still affects women in a positive perspective. Maybe she's not your image of a feminist, but I don't think you shutting this woman all the way down is feminism either. Some of the conversations about Beyonce and her feminism don't seem to move us forward very much. They seem to, in some ways, just attack her.
Beyonce doesn't look like a feminist. So she's complicating that narrative, and that makes people really angry.
I think when something is important to you, when you've taken the time to dedicate your life to it, or to study it, or research it, it is very, very unsettling to look up and find that branded, to find that attached to a superstar who you've never really heard of in that realm.
I don't know if we've had a black woman who's as global as she is, ever. Everything she says is literally online as soon as she says it, which can be very scary in a way, but yeah, people consume her at an alarming rate.
She's captured so many young people, especially young women's imaginations so thoroughly that the fact that she's even said the word feminism has so much impact.
You can go to any academic panel about feminism now and Beyonce can hijack it without even being in somebody's presentation. I think what makes Beyonce's feminism particularly attractive is that oftentimes you don't have to do that much to align yourself with feminism the way that Beyonce constructs it. I don't think a lot of people have access to people like Bell Hooks and June Jordan and Audre Lorde. Like, I didn't know who those people were until I was about to enter college. I don't think that's an anomaly. I think a lot of people are just like, who is Audre Lorde? Who is Bell Hooks? And then, of course, when you get to college or somewhere like Spelman, it's like, how could you not? And you should reevaluate your life.
Is it better to find feminism through Toni Morrison or Bell Hooks? Like, Probably, but do Toni Morrison or Bell Hooks have like 1 billion Twitter followers? No.
Beyonce is kind of front and center right now because of pop culture, right? Because we absolutely consume the advertisements, we absolutely buy the music, we buy the perfume, we go to the concerts.
You made it popular. You brought the word to feminism to light. Not that it wasn't before, but of course, you know, you're Beyonce, so you have that fan base and you draw on those people to, I guess, look at the feminism concept. But are you really doing it justice?
I think some of the disadvantages of finding feminism through popular culture as opposed to reading texts or being introduced to writers like Bell Hooks or like Alice Walker is that you might get an uncomplicated, non-intersectional view of feminism.
You don't really have to challenge heterosexuality. You don't really have to challenge capitalism all that much. You don't really have to challenge, you know, world imperialism.
Many of the young people who embrace the terms because they've seen their favorite celebrity do it really don't have a history and an understanding of what that term means, particularly when it comes to class and race.
Really, there's a personal responsibility upon each person to investigate that knowledge for yourself so you really know what you're getting into and what you do and don't agree with.
I think I wouldn't have claimed the title if I hadn't done the research. A part of Beyonce's feminism is mostly just a show.
There is an economic aspect here that she's full aware of, right? So what is she selling? Do I think she's selling something? Absolutely.
First of all, it's never one person. So when I think of Beyonce, I think of an entity, a company, a corporation, because there are lots of people involved in that image that she's projecting.
Even if you say that your favorite celebrity is a part of some human rights organization, whatever, it's hard to take that seriously of whether or not they're doing this just for the attention or if it's actually a genuine thing.
I do think in many instances pop culture uses feminism as a commodity. It uses anything it can as a commodity, so feminism isn't anything sacred.
In 1912, Charlotte Hawkins had the audacity to smoke in the parlor. When her husband came home early, she paid the price. Then women won their rights.
You've come a long way, baby.
This is the Slim cigarette made just for women.
I see a corporation that will do anything it needs to do in order to get attention, in order to make sure that it's trending on Instagram and Facebook.
I actually feel like the major assault on feminism in our society has come from visual media. The tirades against feminism occur so much in the image-making business, in what we see.
The constructed images we see in the media are incredibly important to the way we perceive new ideas because of their repetition, because we see them all the time. It's not what you see once, but what you see 1,000 times that has a lot of impact, and we see them over long periods of time. And now images are constructed for us in every aspect of how we engage with society.
Yeah, I think the media is sort of a mechanism for giving women messages about their roles in society and how much progress we've made. So when we think of things like music videos and commercials and even things that aren't fiction, like news stories and what gets covered and how women get talked about on news stories.
Sexism. Does it still exist? Many men say no. Jessica Williams explores.
People complain a lot about sexism these days, but thankfully there are those who know the truth.
I'm not buying this inequality business. I'm not.
Men and women are different, and we should celebrate that rather than claiming women are victims.
I think you can use those things as cues sort of to understand how women are perceived.
So when I created the term misogynoir, I was thinking about the ways that Black women are represented in popular culture, and that some of the way that Black women are represented are particularly damaging and different from how just general misogyny affects white women or other women of color. When we think about Beyonce's career and how she's changed over time, just seeing the way her hair has gotten blonder, Her skin has been lightened in some of the advertising that people have used to represent her. I think those really show how representing Black women as being closer approximations to whiteness really is what helps propel a career.
She's using the same images that were used against her and us for so many years, and she's taking control over in that, saying, if y'all are going to make money off of it, so am I.
Of course, I think that's fantasy. I used to get so tired of people quoting Audrey, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. But that was exactly what she meant, that you are not going to destroy this imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy by creating your own version of it. I see a part of Beyonce that is in fact anti-feminist, that is assaulting, that is a terrorist, especially in terms of the impact on young girls.
Sarah Baartman is was a Khoisan woman. She was a Black woman living in the area we now understand to be South Africa. There were European explorers who were interested in her body. And one of the things that they did was they took her from her village, from her home community, brought her to Europe, and displayed her. She kind of is the beginning of a conversation about how Black women have been treated in our society or in the world globally as the other, as somehow deviant because of how our bodies look, etc. So I think there's a way that people like to make a connection between Sarah Baartman and some pop culture figures like Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, etc. And so what's really different is the level of agency that the women have. It's not really clear how much agency Sarah Baartman had in terms of how she was being displayed. In a lot of ways, Beyonce has control over her image and how she wants to represent herself. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't also contribute to the way that people see Black women as, very sexual, that it doesn't still play into stereotypes about how people want to understand Black women.
One of the issues that probably a lot of feminists have, and one of the aspects of her brand that's a bit problematic, is this sticky situation with the male gaze. I think there's a distinct difference between kind of embracing your sexuality, harnessing your own sexuality, saying I'm not going to use my sexuality for the purposes of, appeasing patriarchal standards of beauty, or et cetera, et cetera. I think there's a distinction between that and just dancing naked everywhere.
How you gonna upgrade me? It's higher than #1. You know I used to beat that block. Now I bees the block.
Let me upgrade. Even more than her body, it's what that body stands for. That is wealth, fame, celebrity, all the things that so many people in our culture are lusting for. Why is it that we don't have liberatory images that are away from, not an inversion of what society has told us, but that are our own sense of what am I looking like when I am free?
So Beyonce may be a cultural revolution, I think, for a lot of us because we've grown up with her. A lot of us think of her as someone who could be like an older sister who look out for you, and as someone who, through virtue of her being her own person and through virtue of her doing the things that she loves and staying committed to the things that she loves, gives you permission to sort of step into yourself. If you haven't been very enraptured by Bootylicious or Bills, Bills, Bills or Crazy in Love or anything like that, then it's very hard for you to see why Beyonce calling herself a feminist can be a really good thing.
I was definitely liberated by the video Partition, by her being at this mantle in her career, at the top of her game, and deciding to slough off all identity and respectability politics and saying, I am Beyonce, I am a woman, I am a mother and a wife, and I am a sexual being.
There's this diminishing of Black women's bodies and sexuality, right? Why can't Beyonce be it's empowered in her sexuality, but other females like Madonna, Annie Lennox can be.
I think that when you look at the body of Beyonce's work, you actually see many different women. So we went from Drunken Love to Beyonce singing the national anthem, right, on the steps of, the Capitol. And then we went to Beyonce at the most recent Grammy award show, right, singing Precious Lord. And then we shifted to 7-Eleven. When you look at them kind of one against the other, I think she absolutely reveals that she is a complex woman. And that goes completely against the notion of women being one-dimensional, monolithic in a sense in terms of our ideas and, who we present ourselves to be. I think she blurs the lines here.
We don't see a lot of black women who get to be these multidimensional, fully fleshed out human beings, where they're, mothers, wives, a successful businesswoman, a celebrity, who kind of owns her own sexuality. And she's this multidimensional figure that's, nuanced and morally complex.
I think it's interesting to watch Beyonce use patriarchy in order to advance feminist goals, because a lot of us are in very gray spaces where we are using patriarchy in order to advance anyway. She asked us a question like, can feminism be essentialized? So that is like, can you have hard and fast rules about what your personal politics should be before you are able to call yourself a feminist?
You just have a situation where people have said, okay, so-and-so says she's a feminist. So that's fine, because she can have her own definition of feminism. And then it won't have any meaning.
You don't want to say yes and run everybody away who could be a feminist, but you don't want to say no and make it a free-for-all and dismantle the very foundations of what feminism is.
Because suppose I have 30 people in a room, and I ask all of them to define what they mean by feminism, and they have 30 different meanings. What can we do with that?
We get back to a feminism that centers those.
A multifaceted empowerment of women, really. So, of course, political, economical, cultural, just anything that kind of brings us up from where we are disenfranchised, really.
So in its most simplistic form, feminism is about gender equality. But I think feminism is broad enough that it can cover people who have been historically oppressed.
If you have a global perspective on feminism, as opposed to just a U.S. perspective, then your notions about feminism can be even more complicated. If you realize that people don't have the same understanding of feminism in this cultural context or another cultural context.
How do we undo this white supremacist capitalist patriarchy that Bell Hooks talks about? And I don't think that Beyonce's feminism quite gets us there. I do think that if Beyonce is your entry point, then that should be celebrated. That's wonderful. I also think that we have to get back to a conversation about structure and how we undo the work of the state.
Beyonce is just a feminist. She's not the feminist. and you can take that with a grain of salt, and you can say, yes, she can join the conversation too, because I feel like she does have something important to bring to it.
For new feminists coming in to feminism as an ideology, a philosophy, a lifestyle, whatever that means for those particular people, through Beyonce, I think having a very clear sense of who you are is key. And not holding yourself to the standard or standards that Beyonce seemingly represents.
There's no substitute for sitting down reading a really good feminist text.
So reading something like Bell Hooks' Feminism is for Everybody, reading Janet Mock's Redefining Realness.
So reading more transnational people, I think there's a tendency to sort of erase all the feminist work that came before the suffrage movement, and there's also a tendency to erase transnational feminism and how women from the quote-unquote third world have been writing and organizing about things that lots of women in the U.S. didn't pick up on until 1865.
We have an incredible number of scholars, particularly black female scholars, who've worked really hard to think through feminism, who have a historical understanding of the term, who have even a visionary understanding of where we need to go with feminism, and even talking to elder women about this idea of feminism.
Remember that in addition to feminism being an ideology in a social movement, in a political revolution, it's also a personal journey. Because you never know what somebody like Beyonce will read in 10 years and say, wow, I was wrong when I released my album, or I could have said this differently or something like that. And that goes back to Bell Hooks' quote about feminism being a politics as opposed to all forms of oppression. We don't learn what all those forms of oppression are at one time, and we don't dismantle them all at one time. And learning the process of seeing all these things as interconnected is a very long one and a tiresome one, but I think as our ideas grow and change, we grow and change it, and that helps inform our feminism.